The stars are shifting into perfect alignment as we approach the release of season 6. So far, we've gotten 3 posters to give us a sneak peek to the vibes of the season, and today's mission is to analyze it. So, without any further ado, let us gaze into these posters and see what we can find. Okay, starting with the first poster. The focal point here is naturally Claudia. It is absolutely stunning. You can see the grief, the hopelessness, the despair, and of course, we can't miss the fact that she is submerged in water. In season 5, we see how this motif of her being in water is alluding to how she is descending into darkness and she is chest deep into those waters now. Another thing of note in this poster is of course the star map, and my eye is immediately drawn to the Star Touch elf constellation that is holding a star. And apparently this Star Touch elf is named Leola. Yeah. Excuse me, I hear you saying, isn't Leola a unicorn? Okay, it's right behind the elf. Leola's last wish. Yeah, apparently there's more than one Leola. Aaron Ehas tweeted in response to someone asking if that was a child Aaravos, and he very concisely said, that's Leola, okay? I don't think there's any further elaboration on this, so this is where we kind of have to put the pieces together and speculate. Now, I'm gonna be 100% honest with you, okay? When I first saw the stargazing clip and heard Leola's last wish, I thought, oh, the unicorn must be the constellation of Leola's last wish. But now that I have this information, it is clear that Leola's last wish is that elf holding that star. Because remember, the constellation of Leola's last wish is also the South Star, the brightest star in the sky. Okay, now ignore everything you know or don't know about Leola and look at the star map, okay? Which star looks like the brightest star to you? Okay, there's only one answer for me. And okay, to be fair, there is that lonesome star and the unicorn's horn, which have like this halo around them, which could insinuate brightness, but they still don't compare to the elf, the Star Touch elf holding that star. So, and not just that, okay? Also, look at the star. Doesn't it look like a compass? It does to me. And remember, the South Star is used to navigate the endless darkness of the night. And just to be sure, I had to compare the map to the stargazing clip, and lo and behold, the stars that make up the unicorn constellation is just behind the South Star. There's the horn, that's the head, its nose, the neck, the mid body, it's behind, and finally its tail. So, yeah, Leola's last wish is the Star Touch elf, and that unicorn could either be a different one, or it could be the Leola that we know, the one that gave humans the knowledge of primal stones and rune magic. But the constellation of Leola's last wish, which is also known as the South Star, is this Star Touch elf. Okay, I'm pretty sure, but to be fair, I have been saying that in like nearly every video, and logistically speaking, I can't be right about everything, but I'm sure about this because in the same episode where the stargazing clip happens, this is where we get the end credit drawing of this particular constellation. So I feel like that was an attempt to clarify that that is Leola's last wish. And again, I could be wrong here, but that is where my observations have guided me. So I'm gonna move forth with this conclusion in mind. Now, let's go back to talking about what we were supposed to be talking about, which is analyzing that poster. And I find it really interesting that Leola's last wish is almost overlapping with her heart. So, to me, this indicates how Claudia could similarly be making a sort of plea. And it makes me think of how the humans begged the stars for mercy. And speaking of which, who else could answer that call if not for Aaravos? Now, the fact that Aaravos is overlaid here cannot be a coincidence. So I really do wonder if perhaps that lonesome star on the map is going to be called like the Midnight Star, but that's besides the point, okay? I think that what we are being told here is how Aaravos is watching Claudia step deeper into darkness. I can't help but feel like Aaravos sees himself in Claudia, and it's that teardrop that's falling from Claudia that makes me think that. It reminds me of Aaravos from his Blood and Stardust poster, both their teardrops are causing ripples in their water, and her ripples are likely to be of chaos, just like Aaravos. And something else I want to point out here is how her eye on the left is covered while Aaravos is exposed, and while her right eye is visible, his right eye is hidden by a star. So when it comes to Claudia, I could be looking into it way too much, but I find it interesting that it's her right eye that we are seeing, which is framed by her white hair. And while we usually associate black with darkness, that is inverted here. Her black hair is the part of her that remains untainted by dark magic. And the eye that we do get to see is looking through her dead, tainted hair. So as she wishes upon a star, she will likely only see and find death and darkness. When it comes to Aaravos, I absolutely think that he is keeping an eye on Claudia, but ultimately, she is just an asset, a puppet, a pawn. Aaravos' eye, his real endgame, is up in the stars. And yeah, that is my analysis of that first poster. I absolutely love it. I can't wait to see Claudia go through it and just, descend. But yeah, let us move on to that second poster where the focal point is none other than Aaravos, and he's looking like he's ready to wreak some havoc. There is a lot going on, but I'm gonna start with this shadow demon looking thing that makes Sir Sparklepuff look kind of cute. But this being is very clearly one of darkness, and surprisingly, there's no purple, and instead it's black and red, which is more reminiscent of the corrupted Sunforge. Perhaps, this being was created with Sunfire Elf, or maybe it's just a different kind of entity altogether, with corrupted sun magic thrown into it somehow. Yeah, but I can't make too many details out on it. So the next thing I'm noticing here is the Star Touch elves, or what I think are Star Touch elves. This one on the top right corner is right beside a star, so that's what's making me think that this could be a Star Touch elf. But also the fact that I think I see 9 figures, and in the intro of the Mystery of Aaravos, there are 9 stars that fall after Aaravos. And there's also the fact that they look like they've yet to take form, and look at Aaravos' lower half. It looks kind of like ghostly and not solid. Anyway, the next thing of note is my favorite, which is of course the moon. The moon is all over this poster, starting with, the full moon in the heavens. Then there's the rune cube with the moon primal glowing. Then there are the lotus flowers, which we know are tools used in the Silver Grove to keep track of the assassins who have gone out on dangerous missions. And there's a lot of them too. I think I count 8. I have no clue what that means. Could it be that these are the amount of assassins sent to kill Aaravos? Or are these assassins that Aaravos hired himself? I don't know, and I can't wait to find out. But there are also a few Archangel Lunares. And finally, if my eyes don't deceive me, I think this structure behind and above Aaravos is the Moon Nexus. It has like Historia Viventum type of vibes, But I'm not sure. It's hard for me to know if this is Aaravos in the present or in the past, although he has some of the jewelry that we saw him wearing in the opening scene, but he does appear to be missing the rings on his horns, so I'm inclined to think that this is the present. Perhaps he will be unleashed in the Star Scraper, and that is where some of his belongings are being kept, including that book, which, by the way, has a moon on it. Now, I almost thought that meant that this season would give us some time for the moon primal to shine, but then a new poster came out. And we see Aaravos in the exact same position, except now he is channeling the sky primal. And the rune of the sky is glowing. There's a storm brewing. There's lightning. There are 2 rainbows. A bunch of white feathers scattering around. A puffer bat. A green bird. A blue bird sitting on his horn. And there are other flying creatures that I unfortunately do not know the name of. Now, remember how I pointed out that the book had a moon on it on the previous poster? Yeah, it appears that the cover could possibly shift depending on the primal source that is being channeled, because now we have some of those cracks that resemble the Stormspire. And I'm not sure what this white cloth with gold embroidery is, but we also see what I think could be a piece of jewelry, or maybe it's just like a really fancy bookmark. I don't know. Now, when you look at these two books side by side, they appear different in design, like their gemstones decorate different places on the covers, but I am inclined to think that it is the same book because look at that square gap on the front cover. And yo, I think we are getting a tease to what the key of Aaravos is for. It's to open that book. Like, doesn't it look like if it's right there? Maybe the cover shifts depending on which rune is glowing on the cube. And y'all, that is so exciting because in one of my previous theory videos, the one where I argue that Callum is probably gonna lose an arm, I threw in a little theory about what I thought the cube was for, which, by the way, shout out to Ninja Go Mastery T. Forgive me if I butchered that. But they brought to my attention a huge mistake where I said that the Star Scraper was in the Black Tundra. Yeah, very embarrassing. Now, that was very wrong. The Star Scraper is beyond the frozen sea. Shout out to you. Thank you for catching and pointing that out. But my claim there was that I think the Rune Cube is not just an Arcanum detector, but it's also a map. And I actually think it's more accurate to say that it's more like a compass. But anyway, my argument was that I think it points in the direction of the Star Scraper. But looking at these posters, I think the key is actually being pulled towards that book, which, is probably being stored in the Star Scraper. And I love it even more because in that same video, I recalled how Harold said that the key unlocks something of great power in Zadia, and I claimed that it was probably gonna be knowledge, and here we have this book. I love it. Okay, so that is my theory. That cube is the key to the book that Aaravos is holding. And that's my analysis. I know that I didn't have much to say about that third poster, but I just think the point is to show that Aaravos is now channeling a different primal source. But I do hope you liked my theory about the Rune Cube. I'm so excited. I genuinely can't wait. I'm gonna keep an eye out and watch as the stars shift into alignment until the fateful day that season 6 is released. Now, tell me what you think of these posters. What do you think they mean and what we'll see for the upcoming seasons? Is the cube the key to that book? Tell me everything, okay? I am so excited. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, subscribe if you want to join this beautiful moon nexus, and hit the bell if you want to be notified whenever the stars align. But until then, Tenebras post Lux.